It's time now for County-Wide, a presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. You'll hear about the interesting issues and happenings that affect all our lives. Here's today's County-Wide.
Well, good day and welcome to the program. I'm Brad Miller. It is County-Wide. We're happy to welcome into studio today Alexis James is a communications manager with Cottonwood Police Department.
Yes.
And it's bigger than that, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And then also from Cottonwood PD, Commander Chris Dowd visiting with us again. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you here. A little bit closer to that microphone. Your voice is resonant, but not that resonant. And we're going to talk a little bit about 911. What it is. It's been with us now for decades. A lot of people were born and have grown up with 911 right there. But there are people behind it. There are people that make it hum, make it do what it's supposed to do, and make it work for you when you are in perhaps a very serious situation. The agency is also looking for help. Dispatchers are needed right now. I believe there's some in training even as we speak. And so we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But Alexis, if I can kind of start with you, and apologies for my scratchy allergy voice here today. First of all, let me just ask you very basically, how does 911 work? If I dial it right now, how does it know where I am, and how does it direct me to the right help?
Absolutely. So right now, how that works is it's based off the cell towers and the information that it pulls through Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all that cellular data. There's designated public safety answering points, which is what we are.
Okay.
And so when you call from a wireless phone, it hits that tower, and that tower routes it based on who is primary for that area.
Okay.
So if you're in Cottonwood, you are most likely going to come and hit the Cottonwood Public Safety Communications Center. If you are in Camp Verde Marshal's office is the public safety answering point in that area.
Okay.
And if you need a service that they don't provide, they will transfer you out from there.
And that's why when we hear about hikers, very often, not every time, but the 911 is it what do they call it, triangulate locations? Is that how that works?
So sometimes when we get that initial call, we only see the ping at the cell tower. So it doesn't give us a whole lot of good information. But as we sit there and update, it pulls more information, again, from GPS coordinates, from Bluetooth, from any available cellular, wireless information.
Okay.
And it uses that to triangulate. And then as we keep updating our system, we start to see that better confidence factor that says, hey, they're actually here. Our maps will change. We'll actually see where they're at on the trail.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and then you're also hopefully going to be getting some information from the caller themselves.
Absolutely.
Talk to me a little bit about that. Here again, I'm going to refer to TV an awful lot, and you can help me break off where it's real and or somewhat accurate and somewhat magical. But they always ask for your name, some very pertinent information. That seems to make sense. And they try, it seems like very often, to keep you on the phone. Why?
Yeah, so that's because it keeps that location open for us.
Okay.
So if you move, we can see it.
Okay.
And it does take a little bit of time. It's not that dramatized 911 show where I can actually see footstep by footstep. No, not so much.
Right.
But a generalized movement we can see. And that's why we keep you on the phone. And because we want to keep that open. If something changes, we want to be able to relay that to the responders.
Sure.
So when that call comes in, location. That is very paramount for getting a quick, successful response.
Okay. We're kind of talking here from the caller's perspective, and I think I should tell our audience, we're going to do two segments, and our second segment will focus a little bit more on what happens at the receiving end when the phone goes off at your station and the people that are answering. But to be a responsible 911 caller really is going to depend on the predicament, isn't it? Some cool-headed people normally finding themselves in who knows what kind of situation. It can become a whole different thing. How do you get people to understand they need to cooperate?
Oh, it honestly varies based on the person and what the situation is. But our primary, thing that we try and tell people is we're going to get where you're at first, because that's going to get you the emergency responders. From there, I want to make sure that I can contact you back if we get disconnected. So know your number, or if you're using somebody else's phone, get that information. Make sure that you will have that available the entire time that situation is occurring. And then from there, have a good idea of what's going on. We want short and brief for that initial information. So we don't need the big history. We don't want that. We want what's happening now, because that's what's pertinent.
Right.
So address, then your phone number, and then what's happening now.
In a sense, because the dispatcher, the person who answers that 911 call, you're now carrying on at least two conversations. And in a funny way, the person making the 911 call kind of sort of is the very first responder on the scene.
Yes.
Particularly if they themselves are uninjured or unharmed or not in harm's way directly, but then it becomes a whole different thing if they are. I know sometimes we've seen every kind of story, so I'm not going to try to illustrate too many specifically, but sometimes you get 911 calls from people who can't say specifically what their situation is. That seems like a whole different ballgame right there.
Those situations, they are very unique and not as frequent as people would like to assume.
That's good news.
We get a lot of false information that you can call us and say, I want mushrooms on my pizza.
Right.
That is false information. When we have a situation where somebody can't talk or is in a situation where, they're compromised.
Right.
We want to ask yes/no questions, and we'll tell them that. We will tell them, are you able to speak freely? And if they say no, yes/no questions, and we will instruct them on what they can do to not, let that person know that maybe is compromising them, that they're on the phone with 911.
And that's
Talk to us like
that,
you're talking to a friend.
That's all the training that you folks go through, and we're going to get into that kind of in our continuing segment. Chris, let's bring you into this a little bit from your position. You're a longtime law enforcement career officer.
Yes, sir.
The relationship between the guys and gals out on the street doing that job and the folks back in dispatch, they're kind of like tiny little guardian angels in a way, are they?
Yes. It's kind of it's a family relationship. When I say family relationship, we're like brothers and sisters, and sometimes we love them and sometimes we hate them, and it goes both ways. So dispatch at times will, be frustrated with patrol officers, and patrol officers will be frustrated with dispatch, and it's funny because I get to give them the police perspective when I'm in there, so they can, we laugh and joke about, back and forth about it. But realistically, the two have to exist. The two have to exist together. We have to find a way, even when we're having a bad day, to work together. And we really encourage both teams to get together. We encourage the officers to come in a dispatch center on shift. In fact, it's funny because dispatch they'll make themselves dinner because they're there for 12-hour shifts. So they'll make themselves dinner, and patrol officers will find their way in there so they can get some dinner too. And
smells good.
Yeah, and they have their communication specialist that for certain meals. So if they know so and so is cooking, they'll be like, "Oh, so and so is cooking," and that's I really like that meal they cook.
Is there a dispatch code for dinner's ready? Let me back up a little bit because I've heard this. When I was in the newsroom, we had a scanner in there and we could kind of hear those things. And sometimes you'll kind of hear those tensions. And I never heard once where it seemed to be disrespect or anything other than there is a serious situation happening. An officer is in a tricky spot in the field. Maybe he or she is only there by themselves so far and doing that. And I'm watching Alexis kind of nodding her head. Is that where that comes from, where sometimes we have to take a breath and remind ourselves our important job?
Oh, absolutely. Again, like family. So it's very easy to get comfortable, and you forget sometimes, like, hey, no, this is buckle down.
Yeah,
we need to put aside anything and just focus on the situation at hand.
Right.
So you'll hear that where it's kind of a little bit of a switch in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah, and from a police officer's perspective, when we're on the field, we believe we're the only people that exist.
Sure.
Oh, that's true.
Where communications, they're dealing with it. We're a regional center, so they're dealing with 911's coming in, fire departments, other police departments. So we have a tendency to get in their own box and think, no, I'm the only. Why aren't you answering me? Why aren't you doing this for me? So there's that back and forth, and that can create some tension sometimes.
I can see it. You think about anybody in any kind of workplace, there's going to be little things like that. But when lives are on the line, oh boy, it's just going to amp it up and ramp it up even more. I can sometimes hear, again, just listening to the scanner back in the old days, sometimes you'll hear dispatch frustration with the 911 caller. They can be in a panicked state, and calming, it seems to me a huge part of your business is walking them down as best you could so you can get the pertinent information.
Absolutely. We get so used to it now that I think we even use it outside of our work life.
Sure.
It's become a really valuable tool, learning how to de-escalate the situation. And primarily what helps is just telling people, like, we are getting help to you. Mm-hmm. Like, none of what we're asking is delaying help, and just reassurance. Yeah. Honestly, that's the biggest thing that gets that situation de-escalated.
Okay. So. We need to take just a short break. This is fascinating. I just think it's terrific. Our public servants sometimes go unheralded. We see some of them out doing their jobs. We're talking about dispatch today, 911. Those are the folks behind the scenes that we usually never see and hopefully don't have to talk to very, very often through the 911. A lot more to come on Countywide. We'll be back right after this.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology, factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solaire offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolaire.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Are you looking for a way to support your local schools? Then donate to the tax credit program today. Here's why. At Oak Creek School in Cornville, your tax credit dollars are used to fund field trips, provide sports uniforms, enrich our agriculture program, help our 8th grade students go to Washington, D.C., purchase playground equipment. Ready to donate? You could donate up to $200 as an individual or $400 for a married couple filing jointly. To donate at Oak Creek School, you can find the form on our website at ocs.cocsd.us.
Rice Accounting encourages you to make your Arizona tax donations now.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farms.
We welcome you back to the program Countywide, and this is the first of two segments we'll do on this issue. We're talking about 911, how it works, what it is, what it isn't. Alexis James is the communications manager at the Cottonwood Dispatch Center, a regional center. Let's go back to that here again in a moment, too. And Commander Chris Dowd also with us today talking about 911, what it is, what it isn't. Chris, during our break, you made a great point I'd like you to share with the audience, if you would. Folks sometimes think things aren't happening because the dispatcher is still speaking with them.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where a 911 caller will call in and get frustrated with the call taker because they believe since they're still on the phone and they're asking what maybe the 911 call taker or the caller believes are non-pertinent questions, that there's no help coming. And that's actually not true, especially in our center. When a 911 call taker is taking the call, there are people in the background who are already dispatching the call. In fact, Alexis can go into the time frames to which we have standards that calls have to be dispatched. But it is a team effort. So when the call comes in, there are people in the background, not just a person talking to the caller. There are people in the background who are actually already in the process of getting the ball rolling.
It's the various things needs are delegated.
Yes. Yeah,
it makes sense to me, but here again, we don't think about it. And I can see how a caller could be frustrated. You're asking me the same question. Or you're,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, she says, you've been there.
Again, it just comes to not really people understanding why we're asking what we're asking, which is one of the things that we work through with every call, trying to get that caller to understand that. Mm-hmm. And when it comes in, we have 60 seconds from the time that first ring comes in to get information and get it dispatched.
Now,
So
what do you mean? Why? Why 60 seconds?
That's
what you
standards. There
Okay,
we have
I see.
standards that we have to be compliant with, and that goes into a whole nother thing, reference funding and how
Gotcha.
we're funded.
Okay.
But we have standards, and we care very deeply about that time because we know that we want to get help sent out. That person needs help. They want it. All around, we care. We're compassionate. We don't walk away from that phone call and care any less about that person. So we want it done quick.
Okay.
We want it there quick.
Okay. Well, makes sense. I didn't realize it was kind of like that. We'd think it's fast just because you want it to be fast, which is true. But both things are kind of true that you need to kind of perform at that level. Holy cow. There's more to this than I ever thought. When you get a call, say it's an officer is needed and it's in Cottonwood, it's in the city of Cottonwood, we're just as a for instance, how do you know where each officer on duty is at any given time? Or do you just put out a general, hey, it's at Main Street and Mingus?
Every agency is a little bit different, but how we work is we have a rotation. So it kind of starts with the lowest seniority for officers. They're the first up for the call. Unless it's something maybe traffic related, it would go to our traffic officer. If it's something that needs our canine, we would then dispatch it to our canine officer. But in general, there's a rotation. And if that person's busy, it would go to the next officer in rotation.
Okay. In a big city, Phoenix, say, it might be more
location based.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had no idea about that.
It can be location based, and we also operate with what we call AVLs, which is an automatic vehicle locator, which are in our CAD system. So it'll update the maps. It's not perfect, but they can see where officers are, but that's not the priority to which they dispatch here.
Sure.
And mainly because anytime you're in the city of Cottonwood, you can be within 3 minutes, 4 minutes of
right.
So
Small town.
Yeah, we don't have that kind of situation like you do in the metropolitan.
Sure. Even the county, I suppose, would be a different call for YCSO, say.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's a whole different kind of thing. However, Cottonwood, you mentioned, let's explore that a little bit, is a regional dispatch center. So it's not just the city of Cottonwood.
No. So we dispatched for 3 different police departments: Cottonwood Police Department, Clarkdale Police Department, and Jerome Police Department.
Okay.
And then 6 other fire EMS agencies within the Verde Valley: Verde Valley Fire,
Okay.
Cottonwood, Jerome, Copper Canyon, Sedona Fire, and the Verde Valley Ambulance Company.
Now you're talking a pretty big chunk of property.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty big. Do you have just off the top of your head how many 911 calls you get in an average shift, say? I'm just curious.
Oh, in an average shift, I would say we get,
I'm putting you on the spot
150 to maybe 200, just maybe like 911 calls. That doesn't include all the administrative lines and the additional traffic, but actual calls that'll hit our center, probably 150 to 200 a day.
Okay. Okay, that seems like an awful lot. And then if there is something that is major, you were kind of telling me before we open the mic, I'd like you to share it with the listeners. When in doubt, I should call 911?
When in doubt, call 911.
Okay.
Absolutely. Be prepared for if it's a bigger incident, maybe it's an accident on the freeway. Your dispatcher will probably be very straight to the point because generally other people have called in and we don't want to delay having, be on that phone any longer than necessary so we can get those responders going.
Right.
But if you're involved or you have pertinent information, we're going to keep you on the line.
Okay. So 30 people drive by a car crash on the interstate. They're all going to call 911. You can't answer them all at the same time. Do you need to go to every one of them?
So how it works, so I mentioned earlier that we are the primary PSAP for our area.
Right.
That being said, if all of our 911 trunks, we have 6 of them, if they are all full, which does happen, those additional calls roll over to our secondary, which is Prescott Regional Communication Center. So they'll start to get those calls, and when they do, they'll call us on a different dispatch line and say, hey, do you guys need these calls or can we filter them for you?
Gotcha.
Do you have the information you need?
Okay. Yeah. There's partnerships on so many levels. We talked about within your room. We talked about with the first responders who were out on the streets doing their thing, and now we're bringing in other agencies to kind of help with some of that overrun and all that. You guys have thought about this a little bit, haven't you? Kind of given this a little bit of thought. Is there one thing, and I, again, apologize for my scratchy voice, is there one thing people really misunderstand, that members of the public misunderstand about 911 and what it is or isn't, how it works, what they should do or not do?
I think people don't realize that whether you're calling 911 or a non-emergency line, you're getting the same group of people, and we care about getting you connected with the appropriate resources. So the stuff we ask isn't just asked flippantly.
Right.
We're asking because it will help us route you appropriately, and that's what we're doing. We don't just ask random questions.
Sure.
We want to get you connected so that you don't have to get passed around. We want to get you to the person who can give you help. If it's not us, we want to get you right there.
Right.
So.
And time is of the essence.
Absolutely.
Always. We mentioned earlier, I don't want to give a specific, like your dispatch number, because the people hearing this show can be all over the county. But there is a difference between 911 and just calling dispatch for like dog at large or lesser calls where life is not imperiled. And that's kind of the dividing line.
When 911 is for life-threatening emergencies. And I know that we get stuff that are not necessarily immediately life-threatening,
right.
But to that person, it's a very big situation, and we understand that, and we take those. But when you're calling 911, keep in mind, it is for emergencies, not when you can't get a hold of your cell provider.
Yeah.
We do get a lot of those calls, and it is so. We will be professional on that line, and we expect when people are calling that they recognize they are calling 911. We ask what we do. We do what we do because it is an emergency situation.
Right.
So
it's not a toy.
No, it's almost come to the point. I'll stand there and monitor it, and people will treat 911 like it's Google.
Bingo.
And
I see it in our radio prep. My McMuffin wasn't hot enough.
Yes.
I'm calling 911.
Yes, or they'll just call for information. Yeah, I was wondering what the crime stats were for.
My.
This, and again, that's something to remember, that 911 isn't Google. We have a non-emergency line, and we'll provide you all the information we have, but keep that in mind.
Yes.
Life-threatening.
Yep.
Keep that in mind before you dial that number.
Absolutely. If there's road closures, that's not a 911 emergency.
If I'm in a situation and I see first responders have arrived, I don't need to call 911 then.
Yes.
Things have happened. Sure.
Yes.
Seems obvious, but I imagine that can still happen.
It does.
There's no way we could even come remotely close to going through every single scenario that you have seen. But we do understand 911 is there. It is critical. Everybody, I think, should have it in their phone if they don't already, and be ready to do that. Find out independently your own dispatch number. So if you have a non-emergency where authorities are needed for one reason or another, you can do that without the excitement of what a 911 call and all the bells and whistles and triggers that it'll flip over in the dispatch center. Again, as we wrap up, I'm talking with Alexis James, communications manager, Commander Chris Dowd, and they're with Cottonwood PD, but 911 is throughout the nation, including, of course, our own area. So you're going to have different folks and different managers and different systems in place, but all of them there to serve you. And please don't abuse the 911. It is a privilege to have it. This is the first of two parts that we're going to do on this, and in our second segment, I want to talk more about dispatch from the inside, kind of looking out. And also, you're looking for help. If people are interested in becoming a dispatcher, what do they do? Who do they call?
They can call into dispatch, and they will get routed to either our hiring and recruitment supervisor. They can go to the City of Cottonwood website, which is where our applications are, and give direction from there. And
go from there. In our next show, we'll also talk a little bit more about that, qualifications and what you might need to think about a little bit before you jump into this important team. All right, our guests again for part one. Part two coming up, Alexis James and Chris Dowd. We thank you so much. It's countywide, and we'll see you next time.
Life changes, then it changes again. Predicting the unexpected in life is impossible. That's why it's called unexpected. So when it comes to financial goals, our philosophy is don't predict, prepare. Hi, I'm Edward Jones financial advisor Matthias Sandoval. A job loss, change in health, or a loss of a loved one can have a big impact on your family's financial security. Let's work together to help make sure you're equipped for life's unexpected events. Call our office to schedule a face-to-face appointment.
Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
Verde Solaire, your hometown heating, air conditioning, and plumbing company in the Verde Valley, and your trusted North Central Arizona Goodman dealer. Goodman is a name you can trust with the revolutionary Comfort Bridge technology factory installed into select Goodman gas furnaces and air handlers to ensure the entire system operates at peak energy efficient performance. Verde Solar offers free in-home estimates, locally owned and operated since 1983. Visit them at verdesolar.com. Better, cleaner, faster.
Are you looking for a way to support your local schools? Then donate to the tax credit program today. Here's why. At Oak Creek School in Cornville, your tax credit dollars are used to fund field trips, provide sports uniforms, enrich our agriculture program, help our 8th grade students go to Washington, D.C., purchase playground equipment. Ready to donate? You could donate up to $200 as an individual or $400 for a married couple filing jointly. To donate at Oak Creek School, you can find the form on our website at ocs.cocsd.us.
Rice Accounting encourages you to make your Arizona tax donations now.
Let's talk. That's the message from Jonna Randall Murdoch, your local Farm Bureau agent, providing a personal touch when making insurance and financial decisions. Jonna will simplify your insurance needs while offering competitive pricing. Let's talk auto, home, life, and farm. Call Jonna at Farm Bureau today at 928-649-8686. Your Cottonwood Farm Bureau property and casualty insurance company. At Farm Bureau, they insure more than just farm.
This has been Countywide. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday at this time. If you have a topic or guest idea that you'd like to suggest, email us, news@myradioplace.com.